OpenAI has introduced deep research. It's an agent that uses reasoning to synthesize large amount of online information, and it does it with a multi-step research task. Let's quickly look at the demo that they have given. To get started, we need to enable deep research in ChatGPT, and then we can ask a research type question. For example, we can ask compile a research report on how the retail industry has changed in the past 3 years. And we're asking us to use bullet points and tables where necessary. So it comes up with bullet points to clarify first what it needs to do. We are asking for all global perspective. Then it's compiling a detailed research report on how the retail industry has transformed over the past 3 years on a global scale. This will cover all these items. While it doesn't get back to us straight away like the other models, it opens this tab and it shows what's going on, and it shows us that it's searching for details. For example, it searched Statista, e-commerce share data, and it's searched this website, and it's searched this website, and eventually it's trying to compile the research report for us. How cool is that? So the feature is powered by a version of upcoming OpenAI O3 model that's optimized for web browsing and data analysis. It leverages reasoning to search, interpret, and analyze massive amount of text, images, and PDFs on the internet. And they're saying that, synthesizing knowledge is a prerequisite to creating new knowledge. So it's key that the models that do AGI should be able to synthesize knowledge. So why have they built this deep research? They're saying that it's built for people who want intensive knowledge work in areas like finance, science, policy, engineering, and need thorough, precise, and reliable research. So if you have a topic, you need to do a deep research on that topic, then you'll have to resort to deep research, as the name suggests. And it can even do hyper-personalized recommendations on purchases. We'll see later on how it does this needle in the haystack search. For example, we may have to buy items like cars or appliances or gadgets. Then we can use DeepSeek instead of doing our research for several hours. If we just ask DeepSeek, it comes up with the best answer that's hyper personalized for us and recommendation within few minutes, rather than we spending several hours on it. Let's see how we can use the model. Obviously, like I said before, we need to enable the deep research in ChatGPT, and we are ready to go. And it seems we can even attach files or spreadsheets to add context to our questions. Unlike other models, it takes about 5 to 30 minutes to complete its work, taking time to deep dive into the web. Basically, it crawls the web and finds the exact answer that you need, or it compiles a huge report to summarize everything that it has found out about your question. So the final output arrives as a report within the chat, and they're saying that in the coming weeks they are adding embedding images, data visualization, and other analytical output. So what is the difference between GPT-4o and this deep research? They're saying that GPT-4o is ideal for real-time multimodal conversation, but this one is suitable for doing deep research, which takes a lot of time. So they've given some use cases when we need to use deep research. One is business. For example, if you want to find iOS and Android adoption rates, who want to learn another language, and change in mobile penetration over the past 10 years, for top 10 developed and top 10 developing countries by GDP. Lay this info out in a table and separate stats into columns and include recommendations on markets to target for a new iOS translation app from ChatGPT, focusing on markets ChatGPT is currently active in. So GPT-4o straight away comes up with the top 10 countries, and it comes up with the top 10 developing countries by GDP, and it gives insights and recommendations. Let's look at the response with the deep research enabled. It gives much more depth in insight. For example, it gives 58% for iOS market share, Android market share, and interest in new language percentage of the population. And it's much more detailed, and the data is structured in a tabular format compared to just bullet points that came with GPT-4o. And again, for the top 10 developing or emerging economies, it comes up with the tabular data that's much more detailed, like a report. And eventually, it also quotes the sources that it took from and the recommendations. So let's look at another example. This is quite interesting, which is needle in haystack. It's nothing but if you want to really search for a particular detail in the vast amount of data that's available in the web, then it looks like deep research does a pretty good job compared to GPT-4o. Let's see what the user is asking. So there's a TV show that I watched a while ago. I forgot the name of it, but remember what happened in one of the episodes, and you give the details as to two men play poker. A man gets locked in the room. Two men go to a butcher shop. Please browse the web deeply to find the TV show episode where this happened exactly. To answer this, GPT-4o comes up with the answer. It says that if this aligns with your recollection, then Servant is likely the show you're thinking of. Let's see what the deep research comes up with. All three describe events occurring in the Star series counterpart Season 1, Episode 4, titled Both Sides Now. In this episode, then it just gives the details of what happens in the episode. For example, poker game bluff, locked in room and daughter knocks, butcher shop with vodka. Each of these moments is a plot point in Both Sides Now, confirming it as the episode in question, and it quotes the source as well. So this is fantastic. So it definitely does a much better job than GPT-4o when we really need a needle in haystack. And it seems to do shopping, which I found quite exciting. If you want to say find a gadget, then it seems deep research obviously gathers quite a lot of information and saves you a lot of time. I'm looking for the perfect snowboard. I'll be riding primarily in Hokkaido around twice a month during the winter season. I enjoy glamorous runs. We just basically give all our criteria so that it does a hyper personalized search for you and compiles the answer. My budget is mid-range with slightly premium, and I would like suggestions on specific brands and models that are accessible in Japan. Given all that, GPT-4o just tabulates a few models with the description, price range, availability in Japan. But with deep research, it takes a while. It comes up with a really long answer in a tabular format, and it gives riding tips. Finally, all these boards are built to handle variable terrain, and it quotes the sources as well. So if you're wondering how it works, they have clearly mentioned that deep research was trained using end-to-end reinforcement learning. So this reinforcement learning is becoming a big time thing and seems to be becoming the mainstream approach to training these large models. So through that training, it learned to plan and execute a multi-step trajectory to find the data it needs, backtracking and reacting to real-time information where necessary. So basically, with reinforcement learning, they have trained to go back and forth between searching the web, coming back with the right answer, and compiling a report. The model is also able to browse over uploaded files, plots, and iterate on graphs using Python tools. And it's able to embed both generated graphs and images from websites in its responses. Moving on to some evaluations, let's look into how it does in the Humanities Last Exam. Now, what is this data set? So Humanities Last Exam is a global collaborative effort with questions from nearly 1,000 subject expert contributors affiliated with over 500 institutions across 50 countries, and it comprises mostly of professors, researchers, and graduate degree holders. So it's questions compiled from several subjects, and they're all at expert level. Let's look at one example. So here is a representation of a Roman inscription originally found on the tombstone. Provide a translation from the Palmyrene. A transliteration of the text is provided, and they have given this. And there's a completely different question on ecology. And if we keep moving, there's questions on mathematics, computer science, chemistry, linguistics, physics. And we can see how diverse this data set is. So on this data set, GPT-4o seems to get an accuracy of 3.3, and they have compared it with other models like Claude 3.5, Sonnet, OpenAI's O1, DeepSeek R1, and they have finally said that OpenAI Deep Research with browsing plus Python tools seems to achieve 26.6. But this is also a comparison of the DeepSeek R1 performance that comes from OpenAI itself. It says that DeepSeek R1 is at 9.4 compared to OpenAI O1 and GPT-4o, which perform slightly lower than DeepSeek R1. So let's look at a different benchmark. They have also benchmarked on GAIA, which is a public benchmark that evaluates AI on real-world questions. So if we look at the GAIA paper, it says that GAIA proposes real-world questions that require a set of fundamental abilities such as reasoning, multimodality handling, web browsing, and also general tool use proficiency. So if you want to test a model on all these things, then GAIA is the data set to go for. And they have done that, and they're saying that the previous state of the art in all three levels is this one. On average, it's 63.64. But with deep research, if you just do one pass through the model, you're getting 67.36. And if you do 64 passes, we are able to push it up to 72.57. And they've given examples of how the model handles questions from this data set. For example, one of the samples from level 1 question is in Nature Journal's Scientific Reports Conference proceedings from 2012. In the article that did not mention plasmons or plasmonics, what nano compound is studied? Don't use the prefix nano in your answer if there is one. We can see the different activity that it does on the right. So it's clarifying the search and it's piecing together the details. It's navigating search filters and it's identifying conference proceedings and it's browsing, reflecting on potential issues, browsing again, considering dynamic options, analyzing even details, and finally it says piecing together the puzzle and it comes up with the answer. So the next natural question that arises is what happens if we keep increasing the number of tool calls? As the number of tool calls increases in the x-axis, we can see that the pass rate also increases. So the more the number of tools that the model uses, the model obviously improves in its response and hence the pass rate increases. That's what they're saying. The more the model browses and thinks about what it's browsing, the better it does, which is why giving it time to think is important. So that's why this deep research model gives a lot of time for it to think. And let's look at some examples of expert level tasks. Let's look into linguistics, for example. So that the time saved by using deep research is 5 hours. So let's see what the task is. So I'm a linguist and was hired by a film production company. They wanted me to write some dialogues in English of 5 centuries later. Since in the movie, the US is invaded by different nations with very different languages, English becomes a Creole language, borrowing certain characteristics of each language. I want you to translate the sentences in one into the Creole, which has the features in number 2. So to solve this problem, all that it's doing is it's gathering the background and investigating linguistic nuances. It's determining translation tactics and it's investigating linguistic phenomenon and adjusting citation styles, search. It's browsing the web, piecing together login access, checking access conditions, evaluating options. So we can see how many tools that it uses in order to come up with the response. So in terms of what's coming up, they're saying that the deep research feature is available today only on the web and it will be rolled out on the mobile and desktop soon. And currently it can access only the web and uploaded files. But in the future, they're going to roll it out to more specialized data sources, expanding its access to subscription-based or internal resources. And they're seeing agentic experiences coming together in chapter for asynchronous or real-world research and execution. And they're wrapping up with some limitations saying that deep research unlocks significant capabilities, but it's still very early and has limitations. So it can sometimes hallucinate, fair enough. That's common with almost all of the models, though at a notably lower rate than existing ChatGPT models, according to internal evaluations. And it can also struggle to distinguish authoritative information from rumors. And there may be minor formatting errors in reporting and citation, and the task may take longer to kick off. And they're expecting to fix it in the long run. So that's pretty much it. Cannot wait to dip my hands into it and try it out. And I will see you in my next video. Until then, take care.